Welcome to the Broken Phoenix podcast. I'm your host, Zach Allen. In this episode, we're going to talk about anger, where it comes from, and how to deal with it. I think this is an important topic to talk about because I view anger as a normal emotion, whereas I think a lot of other people think it's just purely a negative emotion. And it's not quite that simple. So I want you all to think about a time where you got very angry, some scenario. I'll even paint you a couple here. Let's say for us parents, imagine you have your kid at the park and they're playing with all these other kids, having a great time. And all of a sudden, you see your kid getting into an argument with another kid. And then you see an adult step in that is presumably that kid's parent. And they start blaming your child. They degrade him maybe, or they say some snide comment. They say that your kid is the one that said the cuss word or said something mean to them and hurt their feelings. All of that. And you saw them starting to get a little demonstrative with your child. How would you end up handling that situation? What do you think would be the first emotion that you'd be feeling? Another scenario, from the guy's perspective, let's say you have your girlfriend out on a date or your wife, and as you leave, you notice other men are looking at her. And you've seen it before. We've all experienced before, us guys. We see other dudes out there looking at your wife's butt, all that stuff, and they might even make an inappropriate comment. What would you do? How would that make you feel? I can tell you from a man's standpoint, that'd make me angry immediately. I've had it happen to me before. Same thing with the child thing. I just had it happen the other day. I took my kids to the park, and the little kid called my kids a-holes. And my kids told me, and I teach my kids very well, no, they're not angels. I know that for a fact. I don't have rose-colored glasses on. But I know my kids aren't going to just spout off swear words like that because I would hold them accountable for it. I saw the woman get a little demonstrative, and I just told my kids, just walk away. Don't worry about it. Continue to play. I've had some other guys look at my ex certain times when we were out on a date, and I made gestures like, avert your eyes somewhere else. Stop looking at my wife. Things like that. But we just continue to walk away. Just continue to walk away. Because it's not worth it. It's not worth any trouble. So that being said, think about times like that and how you responded. And how you felt. So let's get in this episode. We're going to talk about what is anger and where does it come from. We're also going to talk about ways to channel your anger. How is it expressed? Things like that. And then at the end, like always, we'll follow up with the Phoenix perspective. So let's get into it. I'm here to tell you, men and women respond to stress differently. In men, lower oxytocin levels lead men to a more fight or flight response. So we either decide, do we want to run away from this problem or do we want to stand and fight? When stressed, men tend to become more argumentative, respond more critically, become less confronting, supportive of others, and become quiet. They ignore their stress. The man up effect, right? We talked about that in one of my previous episodes. They say, brush it off, man up, continue to soldier on. We don't need to deal with this. They become angry, right? Turn into the Hulk, man up, destroy everything, Hulk smash everything, break stuff, punch people in the face, yell at them, be loud, demonstrative. That's how men react whenever they're faced with a situation that stresses them out. What is anger? Where does it come from? The American Psychological Association defines anger as an emotion characterized by antagonism towards someone or something you feel has deliberately done you wrong. So anytime somebody does something towards you or a loved one or something that, someone you care about, you're going to get angry. You're going to get pissed off immediately as a man. And women too, for sure. But a man, it goes back to old biology. We protect what's ours. Don't mess with anything I care about, or you're going to regret it. That's where our mind goes immediately. It's just a biological thing. It's how we're hardwired. Anger can be a good thing. It allows a man to express negative feelings and motivate you to find solutions to problems. But it can also cause problems. And I'm talking about physical problems as well with your body. Anger can increase your blood pressure and other physiological changes associated with anger, making it difficult to think straight and harm physical and mental health. You get angry and you just want to break something, right? I was born in the late 80s, grew up in the 90s, so I always think of Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit, right? You just hear that song, and it's cathartic. But is it really productive? Who knows? Anger is a primal emotion that's largely controlled by the amygdala. Triggers include, but not limited to, stress/anxiety, frustration, problems at work, school, relationships, financial problems, traffic, unfair treatment, violence against you or loved ones, humiliation, etc. I'm sure everybody listening to this right now has experienced stress in any of these areas or has felt some of these emotions as well. Someone cut you off in traffic, don't use their turn signal, cut right in front of you, almost hit your car. The first thing you do, you say every cuss word in the book, you throw your arms up, you flick them off, all that stuff. Somebody embarrasses you. I can tell you when I'm humiliated, and I'm sure 100% of you feel the same way. When you're humiliated in front of everybody, you immediately get angry. You start balling your fist, you turn red, you're clenching your jaw, you're biting down, and you just want to swing on somebody. Like, catch these hands, let's go. We're going to throw down. Just goes back to that biological response, man. I remember playing video games with friends growing up, and they'd be kicking my ass, and I'd get so pissed. I would just walk away because I wanted to punch them. And that's purely my fault. I needed to know how to control my emotions, but I was just a kid. I'm sure you all felt that too. Unfair treatment. You get looked over for promotions or jobs in general. You're qualified, you got every certification they're asking for, you got a degree, whatever. And they still just keep going with other people. Violence towards you or someone else. Oh man, that's a tough one too. For those of us that have kids, the mama bears out there, the papa bears, the lions, trying to protect our cubs. I've experienced this a lot throughout my life too. Violence against you or a loved one. And it makes you so angry when you can do nothing about it too. So what do you do with that, man? How do you respond to that? It's tough. So there's studies out there that disprove the stigma of men being angrier than women. Isn't that a crazy thought when you think about it? Women are supposed to be kind, nurturing, all that stuff. Here's the difference. Men are just more likely to express it outwardly. Women will keep it in. Studies have shown that, they'll mask the emotion, hold it in, don't make waves, keep everything in harmony, nice homeostasis. Where men were just a little bit of Neanderthals. We're just going to express it, beat our chests, yell, all that stuff. Society thinks it's more acceptable for men to express anger than women to express anger. That's another stigma, which should stop, by the way, in my opinion. Men are encouraged to express their anger outward, and women are taught to suppress it. That's not right either. So, how do we express this anger? I found this on a website called Psych Central, and I thought it was pretty cool given my experiences with trauma, especially these last 3 years of my life, and even from childhood. I could relate to a lot of this, and a lot of it made sense to me. So according to this website, there's 3 ways that we express anger. Number 1 is outward. Outward is an external expression of anger where people notice it. What's it look like, right? Yelling, throwing, breaking things, verbally and physically abusive. I can tell you when I was younger and I did not know how to control my anger, I'd yell, I'd throw things, I'd break things. I can remember one time when I was a kid, I got so mad at my mom for something. She wouldn't let me do something. So mad. I kicked the wall and I broke the drywall. I was on my bunk bed. And I never said anything about it. I hid it, had some like stuffed animals I had covered up with. I remember we were moving out of the house and my stepdad came in the room. He's like, "What the hell is that?" So, by that time, a lot of time has passed and it blew over. And he had to patch the damn wall before we moved out. We can laugh at it now, but in the moment, it's not that funny. I broke something. I damaged something else. My actions caused us to have to buy a drywall patch and drywall, spend money, and repair something. I bet every single one of you have done something like that. I had a friend who punched the ground one time and broke his hand because he was so mad at his parents. And, how many times have you yelled at somebody because you're just so mad? How many times have you punched somebody in the face? Although that doesn't happen too often nowadays. Which sometimes maybe it should, man. Some people get too comfortable talking a bunch of smack. That's just my opinion, though. The second way, inward. Directed at yourself rather than others. So what does expressing anger in an inward fashion look like? Negative self-talk, self-denial of simple pleasures, self-harm, self-isolation. This one's dangerous, man. I mean, outward's dangerous as well, but inward to me is really dangerous to your own self. Meaning it's detrimental to your mental state. It goes to self-fulfilling prophecy. If I tell myself I'm a piece of shit every day in the mirror, I'm going to be a piece of shit. If, the self-denial of simple pleasures, like, it's funny, but it's not. I think of the movie Dodgeball, where Ben Stiller's at the end, and he's hooked up to those electrodes, and he's like, "You want that donut or pizza or whatever?" But he denies himself of it because of body image issues. But that shit happens. I deal with that stuff in athletics, where people do that. Eating disorders. That's a problem. And people shouldn't have to feel like that. It's bullshit. And by no means am I judging anybody who's going through that. If you came to me for help, I would gladly get you help. I don't blame you. I don't judge you. Self-harm, self-isolation. I'm going to admit something to you right now. Because again, this is real shit. I'm here to be authentic and real. And I hope to get some guests here coming up. And I want people to be authentic and real and be okay talking about the hard reality. When I was going through some trauma the last couple of years, you know, I started to self-harm, stuff like that a little bit. You know, I would want to feel. So, you know, I would take some sharp implement and dig it into my thigh a little bit. Nothing to like really cut myself, but to scrape a little bit. And to be honest, I don't know why. Again, maybe to just feel something, attention seeking, something like that. But I did it a couple times. Nobody knows about it. It's the first time I'm admitting it to anybody. But I did it. I dig it in the top of my thigh, like where my hip flexor is, high enough to where clothes were covering it and stuff. I don't know. I couldn't express it outward, so I had to release it somewhere. And I was trying other things, but it just wasn't enough at the time. In self-isolation, I just wasn't talking to a bunch of friends. Kept to myself. But again, was in therapy, and I'm glad I stuck with therapy. That helped a lot, and it got me out of that stuff. So if you're expressing inward, please, please, please reach out to somebody for sure. Because it's going to be so detrimental to your own well-being. And you don't have to feel that way. The third way, passive. Expressed through indirect actions. Silent treatment. Sulking. Being sarcastic. Snide remarks to people. This one sort of makes me angry because the people that like genuinely do this, I'm like, you're so close to like asking for help. Just ask for help. And I get it. It's normal. But if you're sitting there and you're edgy all the time and you're snide remark after snide remark, you know, it's so simple for me because I've been through the therapy process and I've read a bunch of books and leadership and psychology stuff that I can pick up on it, that I forget that other people aren't programmed like that. But the great news about that is now that I've done all that stuff and I've been through all this shit and I have a PhD in trauma, I can sort of make a remark. I can artfully articulate to somebody, like, hey, is everything okay? And I'll diffuse the situation. Where other people will get pissed and they'll make a sarcastic comment back to them or a snide remark. And, you know, someone's like, oh, you're fat or you're gaining some weight, huh? And you bark back like, oh, your hairline's receding, I see. And it just turns into a war of words, right? Where that person just has some insecurities maybe deep down. So I stopped doing that stuff. I stopped throwing zingers back at people. If I can really pick up like, man, they're coming at me and then they're coming at this person in the room as well. Let's see what's going on. I'll tell you one example. When Will Smith smacked Chris Rock and everybody like went off on him online. And my first question was, what's going on in his personal life? Because somebody would never do that in a professional setting like that. And for them to do it, they have some dragons that they're trying to slay, man. Let's talk about that. Let's not talk about the smack necessarily. Was it right? No. Was it justified? No. Not at all. But let's get to the root, man, because that smack's not the problem. In the grand scheme of things, he has some dragons he is slaying. So I try to read people a little better now. And it's helped me stay out of problematic situations. If I know I'm very outgoing and I'm, you know, a ball buster, so to speak, and sarcastic in general, not because I have a bunch of problems, that's who I am. like to poke fun. People poke fun at me. We just have a good time. That's how I grew up. But if I see somebody starting to shut down and get real angry, I stop now. I can notice that now. And like, hey, what's going on? You all right? They'll blow you off at first, but try and get to the bottom of it. So these people are big maskers, man. And some of them are crying for help, and others don't realize that they're crying for help. So be a little patient with those people that are a little passive. So those are 3 ways that we express it. Anger, that is. Next, let's talk about some ways you can try and channel that anger. First off, identify why. What's making you angry? What happened to you? Somebody do something to you. Are you humiliated? Are you frustrated? Somebody do something to a loved one? Is your financial situation not great right now? Identify why you're angry. Next, what can you change / control? And that's super tough. I've dealt with some situations this past 3 years where I had zero control over the shit that was happening to me. But I had to accept it because it was other people's decisions and what they were doing to me. I had zero control, and I was so angry. And I couldn't change anything. I couldn't fix it. Man, that was tough to deal with. But I had to step back, take a breath, and focus on the stuff that I could control and the stuff that I could change, no matter how small it was. I had to latch on to that. Next, ID triggers. This is important. What is triggering your anger? So you know to stay away from that stuff. Or identify the triggers, and if you have a therapist or a friend or whatnot, talk to them about some strategies, how to navigate those triggers. Because I have a bunch of triggers, and they happen almost every day. And it goes back to my previous episode where I talk about, sensory meditation. I fall back to that. Where am I, right now, all that stuff. So identify your triggers, and that'll help you channel that anger a little better. Next, set boundaries. This was so important for me going through a divorce. Figuring out what I could handle and what I couldn't handle, and calmly talking about it and setting boundaries. Once I did that, it helped out a lot with my anger. Because I was just in the wild, wild west, just thinking I could handle everything, and I couldn't, man. So I had to step back and set some boundaries. And we did a good job with that. And it helped a lot. Next, develop a perspective. Will this current situation matter in a year? That's huge, and we'll talk more about that in Phoenix perspective. But just develop a perspective on how is this going to affect you moving forward. Trauma train or strength train, lifting, weights, cardio, whatever, some physical activity. I have deemed it trauma training. That's helped me a lot throughout life. Growing up, and it's helped me a lot these last 3 years. Got some spare time. I'm angry. Man, it's so cathartic to go to the weight room and just lift some heavy ass weight or push a sled or throw a med ball. And you can even draw it. It doesn't need to be super intense or anything like that. Just move some weight, man. Get some good music rolling. Get that dopamine flowing. Earn it. And it may be short-lived, but who gives a shit? Get in there and get after it, man. Go out, chop wood, whatever is your forte. But get physically active. It helps a lot. And there's plenty of research that supports that. And I'm not going to go through all that. Google it yourself. Next one. Channel it into something positive. And it's such a simple thing you can do. Like, I didn't know it at first. I was like, I'm just angry. I want to break things. I want to punch things. But you can channel it into something purely positive. Something stupid like cleaning the house. You know, my sarcastic ass, I call it trauma cleaning. If I'm stressed out about something, doesn't matter whether I'm going on a date or if someone made me angry, a situation made me angry, I'll start cleaning, man. I'll start cleaning the sink. I'll load the dishwasher, do laundry, clean the toilet, sweep the floor, vacuum. I've probably shampooed my kids' carpets about 12 times just this past year. You go out and mow the lawn, tinker in the garage, do other alpha male shit, whatever you want to do. Or start a podcast like I did. You know, my therapist once said to me during this process, she's like, someone messed with the Incredible Hulk and the Hulk didn't Hulk out, and I'm proud of you. It's because I channeled that anger into something positive. I could have took it in a negative way, and I didn't want to. I knew that from the start. Too much to lose. It's not worth it. So I started doing like wood burning stuff where I would burn quotes in the wood, like a wood burning pen, and logos and things like that, until it didn't work anymore. Then I found out what's next. You know, tried to learn the guitar a little bit, which I suck at. I am terrible at it. But I'd like to keep learning that. It's definitely a damn challenge. And anybody that can play a guitar, I'm freaking jealous of you. Or any instrument. I have a new appreciation for it for sure. And then I end up starting this podcast. And I'm like, all right, super angry. I think I have some valuable input on some stuff. Let's channel that anger. Let's quit dwelling on it, sitting around, keeping it inward, being passive with comments, or expressing it outward. Let's channel it into something positive. So those are some ways that you can channel your anger, fellas and ladies that are out there listening too. So anger doesn't always have to be a negative thing. You don't have to respond in a negative way. You can get angry and fix your car that you've been procrastinating for so long. Whatever it is, take that anger, take it to a positive thing. Do not go negative, because there's just a bunch of consequences for you. Your actions will affect not only you, but other ones in your life. Let's move on to the Phoenix perspective. Went back and forth. I was like, what should I talk about? And the topic of this one, I'm going to say, don't make someone else's yum your yuck. I heard this from somebody before, and I was like, wow, that's so simple, but it makes sense. You know, I'll paint a couple of scenarios again like I did before. Say a friend betrays you, or an ex, betrays you, leaves you for somebody else. And it's their yum, your yuck, right? Or what about when someone else's actions hurt you? That's their yum, your yuck. What about, I've seen other things too, like if you're on Instagram and Twitter and Snap Talk and Your Book, My Face, all that, and you see somebody being successful, they have all the money and cars and they're going on vacations. They're the type of people that fall in shit and come out smelling like roses. You know, must be nice. You know, pulled that from Cameron Haynes. You know, you get angry at that stuff, all of those things. And I'm willing to bet you'll probably get angrier about someone betraying you and things like that. or somebody's actions hurting you, right? But you still get angry, and their yum being your yuck, you start getting jealous and things like that, which can lead to anger as well. So why make their yum your yuck? There's no point in it. It's going to piss you off at first, but sit back and reflect, right? So this is how I try to prevent someone else's yum from being my yuck. I ask myself some questions. 3 to be exact. The first one I said, how is it going to affect me now, in this moment? How's their yum going to affect me in a negative way? Does it directly affect me if they go on this vacation? No. Then why am I fretting about it? Does it affect me that they make way more money than me? Does it affect the amount of groceries I can buy and provide for my children? Clothes I can put on their back? No, it doesn't. Then what the hell am I worrying about it for? Right? Right now, in this moment. It doesn't. Second question I ask myself, how's it going to affect me in the future? Is somebody's betrayal going to sit there and hang over my head and affect my future? I have the choice to say yes or no. Am I going to allow that to affect the future? I am in control now. I could not control what they did, but I can control moving forward. If a friend betrays you, whatever, says, makes a commitment to something, some special event for you, and then they back out last minute or whatever. Say they're going to do something, but then don't do it. Okay, it hurts you right now, but is it going to affect your future? And that's stuff you need to ask yourself. And then the third question is, what is the severity or consequences of the action? When I think about this, I listened to a Jocko podcast with Rickson Gracie. And if you know anything about the Gracies, they develop Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So a worldwide martial art, they could kick a lot of people's asses, right? And he talked about this time they were done training, him and one of his brothers, and he cut them off in traffic. Rickson was driving, and the guy threw up his hands and started getting all demonstrative and angry, yelling at him, cussing at him, and his brother's like, hey, let's just pull over and you can kick their ass. And he was like, what is the point of that? Like, ask yourself this question. What are we going to gain from this if we pull over, tell this guy to get out of his car, and we kick his ass, man? Think about how miserable that guy's life is if he reacted that harshly off of us accidentally cutting him off. What's that going to do for us? Goes to the consequences of your actions. That's what I talked about a little bit earlier, right? So what's that going to do for you? How's it going to affect you right now in this moment? If I reacted on some of my stuff that happened in the past 3 years, consequences are I could not see my children for a long time or not see other people that I love. So it's tough. But you have to ask those questions in the moment. Don't act. So those are 3 questions that I ask myself. Sometimes it will inevitably become your yuck. My sister sent me this quote, and I love it, and I'm going to send you off with this. Life chips away at us all. You have choices. You can choose to play the victim. You can choose to be a survivor, or you can choose to conquer. So with that said, stay in the fight, Never ever give up and have the day you deserve.